The massive ship of the Nexar Empire cut through the darkness of space, its hull gleaming under the light of Earth's sun. On the command deck, Admiral Park stood with his hands clasped behind his back, looking down at the blue planet through the viewport. "Such a small world," he remarked to his second-in-command. "Hard to believe our scanners detected so much radio chatter from this backwater." The Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds across the galaxy, following the same playbook each time. Arrive, demonstrate superior firepower, accept surrender and extract resources. Earth would be no different. "Sir, we've analyzed their defense capabilities," reported Officer Nam, looking up from his screen. "Primitive missiles, a handful of space stations and aircraft that can barely leave their atmosphere. Nothing that poses any threat to our fleet." Admiral Park nodded. This would be a simple mission, another footnote in the Empire's long history of expansion. He dismissed the intelligence report about Earth's unusual history of warfare. All species fought among themselves before reaching the stars. That was nothing special. "Sir, there's something odd in the historical data," said Intelligence Officer Ju, a young woman who had recently joined the flagship crew. "These humans have fought thousands of wars against each other. Their weapons development rate is concerning." Admiral Park waved his hand dismissively. "Every species has conflict. Look at their technology. They haven't even colonized their own moon properly. Prepare the standard subjugation message." The massive screens of the Imperial flagship lit up, broadcasting to every communication device on Earth. Admiral Park stood tall as cameras recorded his message, which translation systems converted into all Earth languages simultaneously. "People of Earth, I am Admiral Park of the Nexar Empire. Your world now falls under Imperial protection and authority. Prepare to receive our envoys who will explain your new responsibilities as subjects of Emperor Ryu. Resistance would be—" He paused for effect. "Unwise." Deep below the Rocky Mountains, inside the hidden chambers of the United Earth Government, leaders from around the world gathered in emergency session. The room hummed with tense conversation as military officers briefed civilian leaders on their options. "We've been monitoring their approach for weeks," said Defense Director Lee, pointing to the holographic display of the Imperial fleet. "They follow the same pattern with every world they take. First contact, demands, then a show of force against anyone who resists." President Yoon, a calm-faced woman with steel-gray hair, watched the fleet positions with narrow eyes. "And their technological advantage?" "Significant, but not insurmountable," replied Chief Scientist Bay. He adjusted his glasses nervously. "We've been preparing for this possibility since the Roswell incident in 1947. The public doesn't know about half our capabilities." Around the table, representatives from China, Russia, the European Union, and African Coalition all exchanged knowing glances. For centuries, Earth nations had fought each other, but always with the awareness that someday they might face something worse from beyond the stars. "Are the moon bases ready?" asked President Yoon. General Jin nodded. "Fully operational but completely hidden from their scans. Same with the Mars outpost and the Jupiter stations." "And Project Thunderbolt?" "Ready for deployment on your command," confirmed Admiral Kang. President Yoon stood, her decision made. "Then we respond with clarity and truth. No deception, no compromise." The United Earth Government's response was transmitted on the same frequencies the Empire had used. No visual, just a simple audio message in a calm, measured voice. "To the Q. Nexar Empire, we welcome peaceful contact with galactic neighbors. We have observed your actions toward other worlds. We have no interest in conflict, but we will not surrender our sovereignty. Earth has known war for its entire history. We understand violence in ways you cannot imagine. This is our only warning. Withdraw your forces or face consequences beyond your comprehension." On the Imperial flagship, the message played to the stunned silence of the command deck. After a moment, laughter broke out. "Did they just threaten us?" asked Commander One, incredulously. "With what?" "Their primitive nuclear weapons wouldn't even dent our shields." Admiral Park smiled coldly. "It seems Earth requires a demonstration. Prepare a landing force for their moon. We'll establish a forward base there and show them exactly what happens. to worlds that resist the inevitable. Intelligence Officer Ju spoke up again, her voice hesitant but determined. Sir, I strongly recommend caution. There's something about their message. They seem too confident. Because they don't know any better, snapped Admiral Park. Their confidence comes from ignorance. Once they see our weapons in action, they'll understand their place. As the Imperial landing ships prepared to depart for Earth's moon, Admiral Park dismissed the final intelligence update about unusual energy readings coming from the far side of the lunar surface. Just another error in their primitive sensors, he thought. The Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds. Earth would be no different. He couldn't have been more wrong. The Imperial landing ships descended toward the lunar surface in perfect formation, their engines barely making a sound in the vacuum of space. From the command ship, Admiral Park watched with satisfaction as the first wave of troops prepared to establish the Empire's foothold on Earth's moon. Landing zone secure, no signs of resistance, reported the ground commander. Area appears completely uninhabited. Excellent, said Admiral Park. Begin construction of the forward base immediately. I want weapon systems operational within 6 hours. The massive Imperial ships hovered above the gray lunar landscape as construction drones deployed, quickly assembling prefabricated structures. Within hours, a small city of metal and energy shields rose from the dusty surface. Imperial flags snapped to attention in the artificial atmosphere of the base. Back on Earth, the United Earth government watched through hidden cameras planted across the lunar surface decades earlier. In the Mountain Command Center, military leaders observed the Imperial construction with grim faces. They're setting up exactly where we predicted, said General Jin, pointing to the holographic display. Right on top of Mare Tranquillitatis, President. Yoon nodded. How long until they discover our lunar facilities? At their current scanning rate, less than 12 hours, replied Chief Scientist Bay. They're being thorough, I'll give them that. President Yoon turned to face the assembled leaders. Then we proceed with the demonstration. Admiral Kang, you have authorization to deploy Ghost Squadron. Admiral Kang bowed slightly. They're already prepped and waiting for the go code. In a hidden hangar buried deep beneath the lunar surface, 6 sleek spacecraft hummed to life. Unlike the bulky rockets the public knew about, these vessels represented decades of reverse-engineered technology and Earth's best engineering minds working in secret. Captain Lee, the squadron leader, ran through final checks with her crew. Remember, this is a demonstration only, she reminded her pilots. We show them just enough to make them reconsider. No unnecessary engagement. What if they open fire? Asked Lieutenant Cho, the youngest pilot. Captain Lee's expression hardened. Then we show them why Earth issued only one warning. The hangar. Doors slid open silently, revealing a hidden launch tunnel that led away from the Imperial base. One by one, the Earth vessels slipped out from the lunar surface on the far side, their stealth systems making them nearly invisible against the black of space. On the Imperial command ship, a junior sensor operator frowned at his screen. Sir, I'm detecting some unusual energy readings near the Earth. Very faint. Possibly 6 small objects moving in formation. Commander Wan looked over his shoulder. Debris, perhaps? Or their primitive satellites? No, sir. These are underpowered. Flight and... His voice trailed off as the readings changed. They're accelerating toward us at incredible speed. Admiral Park strode over, annoyance clear on his face. Impossible. Their technology can't... Imperial vessels. A calm voice interrupted over their communication systems. This is Captain Lee of Earth Defense Force. Your presence on our moon is unauthorized. We are approaching for a peaceful demonstration of our capabilities. Do not activate weapon systems or we will consider it a hostile act. The bridge fell silent as 6 small vessels appeared on their view screens, moving with impossible agility. They were smaller than Imperial fighters, streamlined and dark, with no visible weapons. Admiral Park recovered quickly. This is a pitiful display. 6 small ships against our fleet. He turned to his weapons officer. Target tracking systems only. Let's see what they do. The Earth vessels approached the Imperial fleet in a perfect hexagon formation. When they were within 5 kilometers, they suddenly split apart, each taking a different vector at speeds that strained the Imperial tracking systems. "Sir," called out the sensor operator, voice tinged with alarm. "They're moving faster than our targeting computers can calculate. I've never seen maneuvering like this." Captain Lee's voice came through again. "This is your demonstration, Admiral Park. We could have approached undetected had we wished. Your sensors only found us because we allowed it." Suddenly, 3 of the Earth vessels stopped in perfect synchronization, hovering directly in front of the Empire's largest dreadnoughts. Before Admiral Park could issue orders, pulses of blue energy shot from the Earth ships, washing over the Imperial vessels. The effect was immediate. On 3 massive dreadnoughts, every system went dark. Emergency lights flickered on as backup power failed. The ships drifted helplessly, their crews frantically trying to restore power. "What happened?" demanded Admiral Park, watching in disbelief as his most powerful ships floated dead in space. "Some kind of targeted electromagnetic pulse," reported Commander 1, checking readings from the unaffected vessels. "It bypassed our shields completely. They knew the exact frequency to use." As the Imperial crew watched in stunned silence, the Earth vessels regrouped into formation before accelerating away at incredible speed. A final message came through. "We have developed in isolation and constant conflict, Admiral. What you perceive as weakness is resilience forged through thousands of years of warfare against ourselves. We didn't spend our resources on building an empire. We spent them preparing for threats exactly like yours. This is your final opportunity to withdraw peacefully." The Earth ships vanished from sensors as quickly as they had appeared, leaving behind 3 powerless dreadnoughts and a deeply shaken Imperial command. In the tense silence that followed, Intelligence Officer Ju stepped forward. "Sir, I believe we should reconsider our approach to this planet." Admiral Park's face darkened with rage and humiliation. "Prepare a full invasion fleet. I will not be threatened by some backwater world with a few advanced ships. The Empire has never retreated, and we will not start now." As the orders went out, Commander 1 exchanged worried glances with Officer Ju. Both had the same unspoken thought. Earth had shown remarkable restraint. They could have destroyed those ships rather than simply disabling them, and that was perhaps the most frightening demonstration of all. The Imperial War Council gathered in the fleet's command center, a circular room dominated by a massive holographic display showing Earth and its surrounding space. Admiral Park paced around the projection, occasionally pausing to stare at the blue planet with narrowed eyes. "The main invasion fleet will arrive within 36 hours, he announced. 15 dreadnoughts, 40 cruisers, and over 200 support vessels. No primitive world can stand against such force." Commander 1 looked troubled. "Sir, with respect, we should consider what happened to our ships. The humans disabled 3 of our most powerful vessels without firing a single destructive shot." "A.E. Lucky trick," Park snapped. "They caught us unprepared. It won't happen again." Intelligence Officer Ju cleared her throat. "Our recovered dreadnoughts report that the humans knew exactly which frequencies would bypass our shields. That suggests deep knowledge of our technology." Park waved away her concern. "Coincidence? Or perhaps they got lucky with a captured scout ship. Either way, overwhelming force will settle this matter." He turned to the assembled officers. "Prepare for full planetary assault. We'll show these humans the true meaning of power." Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a command center few humans even knew existed, Director Song walked between rows of technicians monitoring global defense systems. The room hummed with quiet efficiency as data flowed across screens showing Imperial fleet movements. "They're calling in their big guns," Song remarked to General Han, who stood reviewing tactical projections. "Exactly as predicted?" Han nodded, his weathered face solemn. "Arrogance is predictable. They think we showed them everything in our lunar demonstration." "Should we have done more?" asked a young officer nearby. "No," Song replied firmly. "We needed to give them a chance to retreat. What happens next is their choice." The officer returned to her station as Song and Han moved to the central platform, where a detailed holographic Earth rotated slowly. With A gesture, Song expanded the display to show the entire solar system, revealing hundreds of small dots blinking around Earth, the Moon, Mars, and scattered throughout the asteroid belt. "Defense grid status?" Song asked. A technician's voice answered. "All systems green. Orbital platforms at full capacity. Deep space batteries charged. Marine floor launch facilities ready. And Project Aegis? Online and awaiting final activation codes." Han allowed himself a small smile. 200 years of preparation. Our ancestors would be proud. "Let's hope we don't need to use everything they built," Song replied quietly. "Activate Planetary Alert Level 1. It's time to show the Empire what they're really facing." In orbit around Earth, the first wave of the Imperial invasion fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Admiral Park stood on the command deck of the flagship, watching with satisfaction as his armada assembled. "Begin planetary scan," he ordered. "I want to know every military installation, every weapon, every—" "Sir," a sensor operator interrupted, voice rising in alarm. "New contacts appearing. Everywhere." The tactical display suddenly bloomed with hundreds of new signatures as hidden defense platforms emerged from Earth's oceans, rose from camouflaged bunkers, and decloaked in orbit. Asteroids that had appeared solid rock split open to reveal massive gun emplacements, Earth's apparently primitive satellites transformed, weapon systems unfolding like metal flowers. "Impossible," Park whispered. On the command deck of the human defense station Sentinel-1, Commander Kang watched the Imperial fleet's reaction with cold satisfaction. "They're adjusting their formation, attempting to compensate." "Poor bastards," muttered her second-in-command. "They still think this is a conventional battle." Kang nodded to the communications officer. "Open a channel to their flagship." Admiral Park's face appeared on the main screen, his expression a mixture of shock and fury. "Admiral," Kang began, "I am Commander Kang of Earth Defense Command. You were warned. Your ships are now surrounded by our defense grid. We have targeted each of your vessels with multiple weapon systems. Withdraw immediately, or be destroyed." Park's face hardened. "You think hidden weapons will save you? The Empire has faced greater threats than this. All ships commence firing." The Imperial fleet unleashed its full arsenal, energy weapons and plasma torpedoes streaking toward Earth. For a moment, it seemed like the planet would be engulfed in fire. Then the impossible happened. Earth's defense grid activated. Ripples of energy spread across the atmosphere, intercepting and neutralizing the Imperial assault. Kinetic projectiles launched from hidden platforms smashed through Imperial ships with devastating precision. Drone swarms emerged from concealed hangars, overwhelming the Imperial fighters with sheer numbers. "They're using gravity weapons," shouted an Imperial officer as one of their dreadnoughts was caught in a localized gravity well, its hull buckling, under forces it was never designed to withstand. On Earth's surface, Director Song watched the battle unfold with grim determination. "Activate second-tier defenses. Deployment pattern Delta." Across Earth's surface, massive hangar doors opened in remote mountain ranges, deserts, and beneath the oceans. Thousands of fighters and larger warships rose to join the battle, piloted by humans who had trained their entire lives for this moment. Admiral Park stared in disbelief as his mighty fleet found itself caught in a three-dimensional killing field. How could they hide all this? Intelligence Officer Ju, who had remained quiet until now, finally spoke. "They didn't hide it, sir. We simply didn't look closely enough. Our arrogance blinded us." In the UEG Command Center, President Yoon watched the battle with a heavy heart. "Signal Admiral Kang. Offer them one last chance to surrender." General Han looked surprised. "After everything they've done?" "Especially after everything they've done," Yoon replied firmly. "We prepared for war, but that doesn't mean we desire it. The choice remains theirs." As the message went out, the assembled leaders of Earth waited to see if the Empire would finally listen, or if they would have to demonstrate just how much more of their arsenal remained hidden from view. The remains of the Imperial fleet limped back to the edge of the solar system, battered ships struggling to maintain formation. On the flagship's command deck, now dim with emergency lighting and filled with the acrid smell of burnt circuitry, Admiral Park stared blankly at the damage reports scrolling across his screen. Nearly half his vessels destroyed or disabled, thousands of crew members lost, a disaster unmatched in Imperial military history. "We need to withdraw completely," urged Commander Wan. "Regroup with the home fleet and return with overwhelming force." Park's fist slammed against the console. "And report what? That a single primitive world defeated the Empire's finest? Emperor Ryu would have my head." "Better your head than all our lives," muttered Intelligence Officer Ju, loud enough to be heard. Before Park could respond, the sensor officer called out, "Sir, multiple FTL signatures detected. They're everywhere." The tactical display showed dozens of ships emerging from faster-than-light jumps at key points throughout the system. Unlike the defensive platforms they'd encountered earlier, these were sleek warships bearing Earth insignia, appearing at locations that should have been impossible for humans to reach. "They have FTL capability?" Park whispered in disbelief, but our intelligence said, "Our intelligence was wrong about everything else," Juan interrupted. "Why not this too?" The main screen activated, showing a stern-faced woman in a dark uniform. "This is General Choi of the Earth Expeditionary Force. Your fleet is surrounded, Admiral Park. Stand down your weapons." Park laughed bitterly. "Or what? You'll destroy us? Go ahead. The Empire will send 100 ships for each one you destroy." General Choi's expression didn't change. "We're not here to destroy your remaining ships, Admiral. We're here to show you something far more important." She nodded to someone off-screen. "Proceed with the demonstration." The screen split to show multiple views, images that made the blood drain from Park's face. Earth ships were appearing near key Imperial outposts, military installations, and even in orbit around the Imperial homeworld itself. It should have been impossible. The Empire's core systems were protected by the most advanced detection grid in the galaxy. How? Park could barely form the question. 60 years ago, one of your scout ships crashed on Earth," Choi explained calmly. "We recovered the FTL drive and reverse-engineered it. While you were scanning us with your ships in plain sight, we were studying you from the shadows." Commander One stepped forward. "Those are just images. You can't possibly have reached the Imperial homeworld." "Check your secure military channels," Choi suggested. With trembling hands, Park entered his command codes. The supposedly unbreakable Imperial military network was flooded with data, detailed scans of Imperial defense systems, fleet deployments, even the Emperor's private security protocols. "This is impossible," Park whispered. "These are our most secure files." "Did you really think we waited until you arrived to prepare our defenses?" Choi asked. "Earth has been infiltrating the Empire for decades. Your complacency made it easy." The screen changed again, showing Earth ships systematically, disabling Imperial communication relays and defense platforms throughout border systems. Each operation was precise, targeted, and executed with perfect efficiency. "We've inserted teams on 37 of your most important worlds," Choi continued. "Right now, they're broadcasting the truth about the Empire to your subjugated planets, showing them that the invincible Imperial fleet has been defeated by a single world you intended to conquer." In the Earth Command ship's war room, General Choi switched off the transmission to the Imperial flagship and turned to her officers. "Status of Operation Daybreak?" "Proceeding as planned," reported Colonel Min, studying a holographic display of the galaxy with glowing points representing Earth's strike teams. "All targets hit within the first wave. Imperial response is disorganized and ineffective." Choi nodded in satisfaction. "And our agents on the ground?" "Activating resistance cells on all major Imperial worlds. The propaganda broadcasts are going out now. Unedited footage of our victory here, along with the Imperial attempt to subjugate Earth. The response is significant. On a dozen Imperial worlds, citizens were gathering in streets and public squares, watching in stunned silence as massive public screens, hijacked by Earth's infiltration teams, showed the mighty Imperial fleet in retreat. Decades of carefully constructed myths about Imperial invincibility crumbled in minutes. Back in his flagship, Admiral Park received increasingly desperate messages from Imperial Command. Uprisings had broken out on 3 border worlds. 2 garrison commanders had defected with their entire forces. The Empire, which had expanded unchallenged for centuries, was facing something it had never encountered: coordinated, multi-system rebellion. "You planned this all along," Park realized, looking at Choi's image on the screen. "The warning, the limited demonstration, even allowing us to call in reinforcements. You wanted us to commit as many ships as possible to this failed invasion." Choi's expression remained neutral. "We study history, Admiral. The best way to defeat an empire isn't to destroy its military, it's to destroy its myth of invincibility." On an Imperial mining colony, workers watched Earth's broadcast with growing excitement. Among them, a quiet supervisor named Bay, who had arrived from a distant world 3 years earlier, slipped away to a private room and activated a hidden communication device. "Phase 1 complete," he reported. "Resistance elements are mobilizing. The mining guild is prepared to declare independence within hours." Similar scenes played out across the Empire as sleeper agents, humans who had spent years or even decades embedding themselves in Imperial society, activated their network. Some were diplomats and traders who had established legitimate businesses. Others were specialists who had risen to positions of influence. All had been waiting patiently for this moment. In the Earth Command Center, President Yoon reviewed the strategic projections with her generals. "We never wanted this war," she said quietly. "But if the Empire forces our hand, we will finish what they started." General Jin nodded grimly. "The counterattack fleets report all objectives secured. The Imperial Border Defense Network has been neutralized. We now have open paths to 70% of their core systems." "And the proposal?" Yoon asked. "Being delivered to Emperor Ryu as we speak," Jin confirmed. "Our ambassador is already en route to the Imperial capital under diplomatic protection." President Yoon stared at the galactic map, watching as the carefully constructed Imperial order began to fragment. "Then we wait for their response. The Empire struck first, but Earth will determine how this ends." The Imperial Palace on Nexus Prime had stood for 1,000 years, its towering spires of crystalline metal designed to inspire awe in all who approached. Today it seemed somehow diminished as Emperor Ryu walked through its grand halls, flanked by advisors whispering urgent updates in his ear. "Another system has declared independence," murmured High Counselor Min. "That makes 17 in the outer regions. The garrison commanders are requesting permission to use force." Ryu waved the suggestion away. "And start a dozen more rebellions? No. We must contain this situation first." He paused before the massive doors to the Imperial audience chamber. "What do we know about this human diplomatic vessel?" "It appeared at the edge of the system 6 hours ago," replied Security Director Sun. "A single ship unarmed according to our scans. They're requesting a direct audience with you." "After what they've done?" Ryu's voice carried the weight of centuries of unchallenged authority. "They cripple our fleets, incite rebellion across the Empire, and then expect an audience?" Min stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Your Majesty, our analysts have completed their assessment of Earth's capabilities. I strongly recommend you hear what their ambassador has to say." Something in Min's tone made Ryu look sharply at him. "You're afraid?" "Yes, Your Majesty. I am. And you should be too." The Emperor's eyes narrowed, but he nodded once and pushed open the doors. The Earth diplomatic shuttle descended through the atmosphere of Nexus Prime, a sleek black vessel that reflected the planet's twin suns like polished obsidian. Inside, Ambassador Yoon reviewed her notes one final time, her expression serene despite the gravity of her mission. "Are you sure about going alone?" asked her security chief. "We still don't fully trust their guarantees of safe passage." Yoon smiled slightly. "That's rather the point of diplomacy, isn't it? Building trust where none exists." She looked out the viewport at the approaching Imperial city. "Besides, we've made our position quite clear. Any harm to this mission would trigger automatic responses they wouldn't survive." As the shuttle landed on the ceremonial platform outside the palace, Yoon stood and smoothed the simple, white, diplomatic uniform she wore. No weapons, no armor, just the quiet confidence of a civilization that had already proven its strength. The Imperial audience chamber fell silent as Ambassador Yoon was announced. The grand hall, designed to intimidate visitors with its scale and opulence, seemed to shrink around her steady advance toward the throne. Eyes forward, steps measured, she stopped at precisely the correct distance, not too close to suggest familiarity, not too far to suggest fear. "Ambassador Yoon of Earth," Emperor Ryu acknowledged, his voice carrying through the hall. "You come before us after acts that some would call war." "Self-defense is not war, Your Majesty," Yoon replied calmly. "Earth did not fire the first shot. We simply ensured it would be the last." Murmurs rippled through the assembled imperial court. Such directness was unheard of. "You've caused significant damage to the imperial order," Ryu continued. "Rebellions spread across our territories, trade routes disrupted, military assets destroyed. All avoidable outcomes," Yoon noted. "Earth issued one warning. The Empire chose not to listen." Ryu leaned forward. "And now? Do you come to dictate terms? To demand territory? Resources?" "I come offering peace," Yoon said simply. "Earth has no interest in conquering others. We never have. What we offer instead is a new paradigm." With a gesture, she activated a holographic display showing a revised map of the galaxy, not as an empire with a center of power, but as an interconnected network of independent systems. "A galactic federation," she explained. "Equal membership for all worlds, including Earth. Mutual defense, free trade, cultural exchange, but without forced subjugation." High Counselor Min stepped forward. "You expect us to simply surrender our authority? The Empire has stood for millennia. And how many rebellions have you crushed in those millennia?" Yoon countered. "How many resources wasted maintaining control through force? This isn't surrender, Counselor, it's evolution." Emperor Ryu studied the hologram thoughtfully. "And if we refuse?" Ambassador Yoon's expression remained unchanged. "Then we continue our current course. Your border worlds are already breaking away. Your military cannot stop our ships. And the truth about your empire's vulnerability spreads faster than you can contain it." She paused. "But that's not why you'll accept." "No?" Ryu raised an eyebrow. "Then why?" "Because you're intelligent enough to recognize opportunity when it presents itself," Yoon said. "As head of a federation rather than an empire, you retain influence while shedding the constant burden of enforcing compliance. You gain access to Earth's technology and innovations, and you secure your place in history not as the emperor who lost everything, but as the one wise enough to guide his civilization into a new era." In the Earth Command Center, President Yoon watched the diplomatic feed with General Jin and Director Song at her side. The tension in the room was palpable as they awaited the Emperor's response. "Do you think he'll agree?" General Jin asked, quietly. "He's a survivor," Song observed. "And we've left him only one survivable path." President Yoon nodded slowly. "That was always our plan. Not to destroy the Empire, but to transform it." 3 months later, representatives from 100 worlds gathered in the newly constructed Federation Assembly on neutral territory, a space station orbiting a previously uninhabited world that would serve as the capital of this new interstellar community. The circular chamber hummed with dozens of languages as former imperial subjects sat alongside Earth delegates and even representatives from worlds that had never fallen under imperial control. Emperor Ryu, now Federation Chairman Ryu, stood at the central podium, flanked by President Yoon. Together they activated the ceremonial beacon that would broadcast the Federation Charter to every world in known space. "History will remember this as the day everything changed," Ryu said quietly to Yoon as applause filled the chamber. "History is written by those who survive," she replied with a small smile. "And today, we all chose survival over pride." Later, in a private observation lounge overlooking the spectacular nebula that surrounded the Federation capital, an Imperial officer who had served under Admiral Park approached an Earth military commander. "I still don't understand," the officer admitted. "You could have destroyed us completely. Your infiltration was complete, your technology superior. Why offer partnership instead?" Commander Lee looked thoughtfully at the swirling cosmic dust outside. "Because we studied your history as well as your technology. Every empire eventually falls, usually violently with tremendous suffering. We offered a better way." "Out of compassion?" the officer asked skeptically. "Out of wisdom," Lee corrected. "Earth spent thousands of years fighting itself. We learned the hard way that domination always breeds resistance, while cooperation builds strength that lasts." He turned to face the former Imperial. "We didn't want to defeat you. We wanted to help you become something better." As ships from 100 worlds docked at the Federation station, bringing diplomats, traders, scientists, and ordinary citizens eager to participate in this new chapter of galactic history, the lesson was clear. Earth had issued one warning, not out of arrogance or threat, but because they had hoped it would be enough. And when it wasn't, they had demonstrated not just their power to destroy, but their wisdom to build something new from the ashes of the old order. A new paradigm had begun,